Welcome back to the Homestand Show. Joining us now is Esfandiar Baraheni of the Steve Dangle Podcast Network. The Houston Rockets, they got their man.
They did.
No, it's not Nick Nurse. Ime Udoka is going to the Houston Rockets. Woj reporting that Udoka decided against pursuing the Toronto Raptors job, which I found very interesting. Why do you think Udoka decided not to go with the Raptors?
Taxes? No, I'm just kidding. Look, I mean, that probably played a factor, being in the States. Houston is, no income tax, so it probably helps a little bit in terms of the money that was being offered. But I think in terms of the situation as well, there's been rumors that James Harden might go back to the Houston Rockets, murmurs, if you will, that he might return there. So getting the chance to coach a guy like, James Harden, also being able to coach some developing young talent that has really some high potential, whether it be Jalen Green. Some people are high or low on Kevin Porter Jr., Alperen Sengun, obviously another guy. So the Rockets have some tantalizing talent that can be developed, and maybe he just saw that as a better opportunity compared to these Raptors.
Now, as when you look at the Toronto Raptors perspective, reports are saying that Adrian Griffin will get an interview. Of course, Jerry Stackhouse' name been thrown about.
Yeah.
If you were to place the odds on who do you think is the favorite in the clubhouse right now to be the Toronto Raptors' next head coach, who would it be?
Yeah, it's funny. If you go and you look at the odds on some of these betting websites, they don't even know. Like Vegas doesn't even know. They're just kind of throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks. And I hate to be the cop out here, but I also really don't have any sense of who they're going to go for. The Raptors have tended to hire internally. Obviously, the Nick Nurse situation is one of those things where they did hire internally. But in the past, they've looked, even before Masai Ujiri, they've looked internally for their hires as well. I remember when Sam Mitchell got fired, it was Jay Triano, who was his assistant, who took his place as well. So there are more examples of them looking internally and looking inwards to see who they can pick. That would make you look at an Adrian Griffin, like you mentioned, or an Earl Watson. Jerry Stackhouse obviously has connections to the Raptors. There's Patrick Mutombo, who was their 905 coach. So there are a lot of, assistants or development guys who are around the league right now who could potentially be that Raptors head coach. But as far as a favorite, man, I really don't know who is in the lead right now to potentially be the Raptors head coach. A guy who would be my favorite, my personal pick, I think it would be Jerry Stackhouse. I think he did a great job at Vanderbilt. He developed an awesome offense. There's been a lot of video clips on that. You can go and check it out on YouTube. But Stack has been a guy who has relations with some of the players on the team. And then on top of that, he's sort of been known to be this development coach. He was obviously the Raptors 905 coach as well. So if the Raptors are moving in the direction of development, Stack seems like the guy I would pick.
Okay, so there's stars in contract years. There's stars who might not be superstars. There aren't that many picks overall. Not too many blue chip prospects. How attractive is this job for a head coach?
It's as attractive as what Masai Ujiri sells. I think, as you mentioned, there's a lot of uncertainty with this roster moving forward, whether it be the free agents that are, in the market between Fred VanVleet, Jakob Poeltl, and Gary Trent Jr., and then the guys who are extension eligible in Pascal Siakam and OG Anunoby. I think there's a lot of uncertainty around this roster, and that makes it a little bit more of a not as lucrative, coaching job as, let's say, another team that has some sort of foundation. I think the Raptors, the amount of uncertainty around them is what makes it so that they're not as attractive. It doesn't make a lot of sense to come there. And if you look at the history of what the Raptors have done coaching wise, they really haven't swung for the bigger names. Even that year where they let go of Dwayne Casey, they did interview Mike Budenholzer, who is the Milwaukee Bucks head coach right now and was like the guy on the coaching market that everybody was trying to gun for. Instead, they opted to hire Nick Nurse. So the Raptors don't tend to go for the bigger names. They tend to, follow their own path, blaze their own trail, if you will. And I think that's probably what they do this time around as well.
As you mentioned, Masai. Last week, of course, he announced when they fired Nick Nurse. He kind of gave a State of the Union address, talked a lot about culture, finding their identity, spirit, and stuff like that. In your opinion, right, are there certain players on this Raptors team that fit that spirit and that culture that Masai is trying to rebuild after a year where he mentioned this team did not look good? They did not seem fun. He just didn't like watching them play basketball.
Yeah, I think more so the Raptors have to look towards what the experiment is that they're building. Everybody talks about that 6'9" vision, right? The 6'9" vision that they're trying to embody. maybe they have to reassess what that vision is, because it hasn't worked so far. And I think I even mentioned it on the show last time, but last year when they were the 5th seed, that was a 99 percentile outcome. Everything went right for them that season. Scotty Barnes was the rookie of the year, Pascal All-NBA, Fred All-Star, Gary Trent Jr. and Precious Achiuwa were shooting the lights out. So everything went right for that team, and they ended up the 5th seed, and they lost in the first round. Now, everything went wrong this season, and that experiment looked completely awful. It looked like it didn't work, and this was the result, a loss in the playing game. So I think they have to look inwards and say, hey, this culture we're building, what is it? What is it we're trying to define? And the on-court product, how do we want it to look? Masai also in that presser stressed the importance of shooting. He also stressed the importance of guard play. So I wonder if they're rethinking that whole 6'9" vision just a little bit so they can make a more, just a basketball roster that makes sense, to be honest with you.
All right, we're speaking to Esfandiar Baraheni. Masai also said that he believes that Toronto is going to win again. He actually said that. I feel strongly about it. We are about winning. The question is how, and what does he see in this current team that he believes he can build around to potentially make a championship winning team?
I think the assumption there is that they believe in themselves as an organization, as a culture. I think he believes in himself. I mean, it would be crazy for a GM to not say they believe in winning. I think it would be, kind of a step backwards if he was like, well, we have to reassess our options here and see what we're really about. Masai Ujiri has always been about winning. The reason they drafted Scotty Barnes was because in his draft interview, he had mentioned winning like 100 times. And I think that goes back to Scotty. I think the connecting piece, the bridge, I'm actually working on a video right now, the bridge for what they're trying to build here, what they're trying to connect the Pascal Siakam, Fred VanVleet core and the younger guys on the team. The key piece is Scotty. And if he can end up being an all-star level player, an all-NBA level player, then now they can build winning habits. They can become a championship contender. But a lot of that rests on the shoulders of a young player, 21 years old, who's trying to figure out the scope of the NBA himself. And also, he's had his ups and downs in his sophomore season. So we'll see what happens, but they're resting a lot of their laurels on Scotty.
Is Masai the reason why Toronto is somewhat of a destination?
Absolutely.
For a lot of these players, and
Absolutely.
without Masai, there'd be issues.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're spot on there. I think that Masai in general, even for the coaching perspective, he's a guy that is well respected. I know he has that connection with Ime Udoka from the Basketball Without Borders camp that they had held a long time ago. So a lot of the fact that Toronto is a lucrative place to go is because of Masai Ujiri and what he's building here, or what he's planning to build here. I think what he mentioned in that press conference about losing the culture, losing the winning habits that they've built, that is the key aspect here. It's the fact that they've lost that attractiveness. They've lost that lucrative, that feeling of camaraderie. The Raptors for a very long time were the sum of their parts. Let's build together. Let's figure this out together. We are a team that can be great together, and we're trying to build that way. That's how that DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry 10 years went. They have to get back to that. And I think Masai Ujiri recognizes that. And, he also mentioned selfishness a lot in that press conference. And I think that's very damning for the players on the team.
Let's look at teams that are actually playing basketball right now. LeBron James and the Los Angeles Lakers went up 3-1 against the Memphis Grizzlies last night. LeBron, again, the king, doing what he does best, 22 points, 20 rebounds, had the amazing and one at the end of the game.
Over Dylan Brooks.
You took the words out of my mouth right there.
Yeah.
Did Dylan Brooks fumble the bag badly and poke the bear, and now the Grizzlies are on the brink of elimination?
Listen, we are a Canadian show here. We would have to revoke his Canadian passport if they're, Dylan Brooks, man, he's not making Mississauga look good. He's not making Toronto look good a lot. I don't know what it is, but we might have to have a conversation about that. I think, look, what LeBron did last night was just pure greatness. He's done it time and time again in the playoffs. I mean, we've seen it for over 20 years. Actually, exactly 20 years. And we've just been able to witness greatness in all his ways. And it's funny because if you watch that full game, you'll say, LeBron didn't look as spry. He didn't look as up for the game. He didn't seem like he had that pep in his step. And yet still he found a way to be incredibly effective. The 20 rebounds was a huge part of how they won that game. Obviously getting to the line and being aggressive and kind of getting downhill. That was a huge part of that fourth quarter and that overtime. So just seeing LeBron do that, the NBA creates these storylines themselves. I mean, the fact that in game 2, after the Grizzlies won, Dylan Brooks says, I'm poking the bear. And then LeBron goes in game 3. Dylan Brooks gets ejected for hitting LeBron. And then in game 4, goes and gets the and one layup over him to secure the victory. It's just these are storylines that the NBA creates themselves, and it's wonderful to see. So yeah, Dylan Brooks, man, we might have to revoke his passport. Not gonna lie to you.
Hopefully, he brings the same energy to Team Canada basketball. I'm
Yeah.
thinking this summer, man. Canada needs a bit of that bite on the basketball scene.
I know, but you don't want that offensive production, which really doesn't
Yeah.
exist. Ask quickly, most likely to overcome a 3-1 deficit: the Bucks, the Wolves, the Grizz, or the Hawks?
I think it's the Bucks, and then everybody, like a giant gap, and then everybody else. It's just, Milwaukee is in a position where they have the best player in the world. They do. Giannis Antetokounmpo is the best player in the world, and because of that, I mean, you always have a chance in the series. Miami is also shooting 20% better from the 3-point line than they did throughout the entire regular season. So they've had an incredibly hot start from the 3-point line. If they all of a sudden go cold, I could see the Bucks winning this. And I highly doubt that the Bucks will lose game 5 in Milwaukee. I think that's just impossible. So the pressure is now going to be on Miami in game 6 to close it out. And if they don't, now it's game 7 in Milwaukee. You have the best player in the world, and anything is up for grabs at that point. But I don't want to take away from Jimmy Butler's performance. That was genuinely one of the best performances I've seen in a very, very long time playoff wise. But yeah, I think Milwaukee probably has the best odds to do that.
Yeah, Butler dropping 56, tied for 4th most in a playoff game in NBA history. Incredible. S, you're fantastic as always. Let's do this again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.